Verse 1, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. That's how the book starts out. For your love is more delightful than wine. Come on, somebody. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. We rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. How right they are to adore you. Dark I am, yet lovely. Daughters of Jerusalem, dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am dark, because I am darkened by the sun. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards, and the vineyard I had to neglect. Tell me whom you love, where you gaze your flock, and where you rest your sheep at the midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flock of your friends? I want to talk to you about the foundation stones of intimacy. The bottom line, this book is about love. It's about a couple. It's about men and women and how they relate. And more specifically, it's about a bride and a groom. The backstory of this book is a king was exhausted with the pressures of his position. He was exhausted with the pressures that came with the responsibilities of leading a kingdom. And so he decided that he wanted to come up with an idea to get away from all of those pressures. And his idea was, I'm going to go find a little place in the mountains. I'm going to build a cabin up there. I'm going to disguise myself and be a shepherd. And so anybody that meets me won't know about my position. They won't know about my wealth. They won't know about my power. And so the people that I meet, I'll know that the reasons why they're connecting with me are not because of who I am. And so he disguises himself because in his mind, no one could really love him if they only connect with him because of his position and the things that he has. I think for the dating couples that are here, it's important that you hold some things back until you actually know what the person's about that you're dating. I know we got married people here, but a lot of people just let everything out. You let someone know everything about you in the first 2 weeks, or you give yourself entirely to somebody because you say, I love them and they love me. But here, there's a principle that it's important that you hide some things, you hold some things back until you really know who the person is and that you make sure that there's commitment inside of the relationship. The point is, in the season of dating, don't give everything away. And even if they love you, if they say they love you, the Bible says love is patient. So if they do love you, there will be patience inside of the relationship. And so this shows us several things. It shows us how they treated each other. It shows us how they loved one another. And the scripture starts off by saying that she said, lavish me with kisses. As a man, Earl talked about it. We want to feel needed. We want to feel wanted and desired. Earl talked about pornography briefly. And if you want to know why pornography is so powerful, is the main selling point is everything you watch. It's this desire, this want. And what draws a man into pornography is not that the woman is more beautiful than his spouse. It's when he watches it, he sees and he feels what it's like to be desired and to be wanted. I'm not defending it. I'm just simply saying what a man wants is to feel wanted and desired. What we have here is that the man has his needs, his desires, and she has her needs and she has her desires. She says, I want my husband to lavish me with kisses. I want him. I desire him. I long for him. What every man wants, she's pulling on him for those things. But then on the flip side over here, she begins to give us the foundation for why she desires him. So as a man, you may want to be loved, want to be desired, but there's some things that push the buttons in your wife or your spouse or your future spouse that actually causes her to desire and want you as well. And this is the foundation inside of every woman that you find inside of those verses. She said, your name is like ointment or perfume poured forth. And the way ointment was made is it would be poured on larger rocks, larger stones, and then there would be smaller rocks, and then it would, of course, get down to even just fine sand, and they would pour the ointment, and it would pour through the larger rocks, through the mid-sized rocks, through the sand, and it would purify the ointment. And so she's saying, when I look at my husband, on the surface, what everybody else sees in the big areas, there is one thing, but I see beneath the surface. I see him in areas where other people do not see him. And she said, I am proud to wear his name. I am proud that he is my husband, because I not only know who he is in a way that everybody can see, I know what he is behind the scenes as well. So the foundation of desire for a woman, the foundation of a woman desiring a man, is when she looks at you, does she believe that you are a man of integrity, not just what other people see, but what she sees behind the scenes? Because she sees what you are in private. Everybody else sees what you are in public. And what a spouse wants to know is that she's proud of her partner, not just in the public places, but she needs to be proud and know that her husband is the real deal in private as well. This is why you should be careful to not do things that cause your wife to believe that you lack integrity, that you're one thing in public and another thing in private. You know me in public. You know me on this stage. You know me as a pastor. But Sarah knows me in private. Sarah knows me behind the surface levels that other people connect with me. And the Bible here says that she wanted her husband to lavish her with kisses. And it says why she had that drawing to him. It's because he was poured forth like pure ointment. He was pure, he was clean, he was integrity. And this is the key to intimacy. That intimacy is connected to integrity. I can say I love her. I can give her things. I can buy her things. We can even have sex. But intimacy is impossible if there's no integrity and trust. If you want to be desired, if you have this thing, well, I just want to be wanted. Can I help you out? Building your life to become, even if you haven't been beginning to set up the right things and say, I'm going to be a person of integrity, will build in them that thing that says this person is not just somebody in public, but this is someone in private. They are the real deal. So number one, I think you should check your integrity today. Number two, she says, if you read it, she says, I don't really feel like I'm that attractive. She starts talking about, she's been out in the sun and her skin's leathery, and she begins to go through the reasons that she wasn't able to take care of herself and pamper herself in her younger years. And she begins to talk about how she doesn't feel attractive to her spouse. And he begins to build her up with her words. He begins to encourage her where she's saying, I'm ugly, or I've gained weight, or I'm embarrassed by the way that I look. in verse 8, he says, no, you're the fairest among all women. He begins to build security in her and self-esteem in her. He begins to let her know in his eyes, what she sees is not what he sees. In his eyes, she's the most beautiful woman in all the world. And he's not just thinking it. He's not just having it in his head. He's verbalizing it. He's talking to her about how beautiful she is, how important she is. And the longer you're married, the more important it is to verbalize and write down and speak the way you think about your spouse. They're constantly in their mind saying, let me kind of put it like this. Sexually, men, what we need, the desires that we have, it's one thing for us in the physical part of it, but for a woman, it's all emotional. So I want you to think about it like this. If you go get money out of the ATM machine, you know that brief exchange, it happens in just a matter of seconds. That brief exchange is only possible because of hours and hours and weeks of work you put in. If you don't put all the work in, you don't get that brief exchange. And so if you're not emotionally building up your spouse and you go for what you think is just a quick exchange, it's not a big deal. Why? What's the big deal? For some of us, it's quicker than others. And I'm 43 now. I'm unashamed. It's only going to take 38 seconds. What's the deal? If I put no work in, come on, that ATM says insufficient funds. In 8 chapters, he praises her 40 times. In 8 chapters, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're amazing, you're wonderful. And so if you want 4th of July fireworks in the bedroom, you have to be nice with your words and your compliments throughout the day. The Bible commands that men are to rule their own house. This is not a militant term. The word rule means to bring the giftings out of them, to bring the talent, to bring the best out of them. And Solomon praised her 3 times more than he touched her. Maybe there would be more touching if we would learn to praise our spouses a little bit more. You see, she didn't feel like an object. She didn't feel like a possession. In verse 9, it says that he compares her, I love this, by the way. He compares her to a horse. So when you go home today, and you say, baby, you look like a horse, you can blame Solomon. In the Old Testament mindset, horses were a prized possession. Specifically, the horse he talks about is an Egyptian horse. It's the finest thoroughbred you could find. And he's telling her, there's no one out there that's like you. There's no one better for me than you. Years ago, I read 2 different books, and we might go into this a little bit this week. These things a little bit this weekend, but one book is What Every Woman Wished She Could Tell Her Man, and then the other one was What Every Man Wished He Could Tell His Woman. And these are the things that they wish they could say, but they can't. So each of these books were studies that were done, what they wish they could say, but they can't say. And a woman is not okay with you choosing her one time, however many years ago at an altar. She actually tells herself every single day, and a woman wishes she could tell a man that these emotional impulses are impossible to control. When they come, why they come, the way they come, they have no control over. And they wish that they could explain that to us. I don't know why, but my past, my future, and my present, they're all tangled up. You're like, hey, that was however many years ago. I chose you to be my wife. I made the biggest decision. I put that ring on your finger. I gave you my last name. Surely you know that you're the most important thing in the world to me. But in the book, it says that a woman actually needs to be told that over and over and over again, because they believe that if you knew then what you know now, you wouldn't choose me again. And so you have to refresh in their minds, hey, listen, yeah, we've been through some things. Yeah, we've seen some things. Yeah, we didn't do everything right. Yeah, we didn't, we didn't have the perfect picture of a relationship. Yeah, okay, this is our story. This is our unique situation. But by the way, if I had it to do all over again, even knowing what I know now, I still choose you. I'm almost done. In Proverbs Chapter 31, you read about what's called the perfect woman. This is the picture of a perfect woman, but the chapter starts off by her husband saying, of all the women out there, you excel them all. Maybe we could have something greater if we would just use our words to say, hey, listen, there's no one like you. If we want some more stuff out of that ATM, come on, maybe we could put some more money in. The Bible goes on to say in the next chapter that little foxes spoil the vine. In other words, if you catch things early before they get larger, that's a key to marriage. That you have to find out how to make sure that these small things don't get bigger. In every relationship, there are 3 levels. The caution level, that's the yellow light. The discussion level, and then the attack level. Don't allow things to get so big that now in your mind, the only way to deal with it is through attack. And the enemy uses the same 3 things in every single marriage. Money, how you manage money, your kids, how you want to raise your kids, and then number 3, sex. And if he can allow those things to go from that caution level, push past discussion level to attack level, and now you're tearing the other person down, you're criticizing not what is wrong, but you're criticizing them personally and who they are. Once it gets to that point, the foxes have gotten so massive that it begins to ruin everything. All the fruitfulness in your life begins to be ruined. And Solomon in chapter 8, verse 6, he says, set me as a seal on your heart. He was a king, and he knew once the king's seal was on something, it was an unbreakable contract. Years and years ago, we've told this story many times to the church. Sarah and I went through, this is back in like 2007. And, I won't go into all the details, but we were going through a lot of things at the church behind the scenes. And I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed, just trying to hold everything together. I think I was 30 years old and was looking at, the church that I had assumed leadership in was probably going to fail under my leadership. And so I was gone every night. I don't know if any board members are here, but we were here every single night trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we not let all this stuff hurt people? What are we going to do? How do we minimize it? How do we do it? And in that time, Sarah found out that her dad, who was a pastor, was having an affair on her mom. And she then found out that it wasn't the first affair, that her whole childhood was littered with them. And so she's going through that emotional turmoil. I'm going through, trying to hold the church together, and I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to be there for her. And that led to really our marriage almost ending. Very close to ending. Very, very close to ending. So close that I was actually on my way to resign when I got a call from a friend. And the reason I was going to resign is I didn't want to take the church through having to hear about the fact that another marriage was failing. And if I hadn't got that phone call and had somebody talk me through how we were going to come up with a plan, to maybe look at it differently, everything we know wouldn't be here. But I can remember the decision I had to come to with her, where I told her at one point, I said, listen, you just need to know I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. I'm never leaving. Never. I'm never leaving. I'm never going to walk out that door. Divorce is never going to be something that I do. And the word divorce is actually a military term. It actually comes from this concept that somebody signs up for the military, and then when their life's at risk, they defect. And what the king said here is he says, on your heart, I'm going to put my seal on it. It's unbreakable. And so I looked at her and said, you do whatever you want to do. You can leave if you want to leave. You can do whatever you want to do. You just imagine the worst possible thing a spouse could do. It's unbreakable on my side. I can't make it unbreakable on your side, but I can make it unbreakable on my side. I'm not going anywhere. I'm never moving. I'm never shrinking back. No matter how bad it looks. And last night we were on the way home, and I hope it's okay that I just talk for a second. I didn't really come up with a good close. And we were just talking about how, the message we're going to talk about this weekend is I don't know how many points we're going to make. We got way too many notes, but we're going to go through the 3 to 5 things that you should do before you get married, and the 3 to 5 things that you should do after you get married. And she says to me, she's like, we didn't do any of the things that we're going to tell people to do before they got married. She said, we probably aren't even that good at the things after we got married. And we just started talking about how dumb we are, how dumb we've been. How it's just so dumb. We're just so dumb. Maybe that's why you come here, because you're like, I make you feel better about yourself. You're like, my God, this guy, hey, we're like the last stop, before you give up on church. Like, hey. And I told her, I said, at some point in every relationship, purpose has to become the main thing. Your purpose has to be greater than what it started like or didn't start like, and how it was right it was or how wrong it was, or did you do these things or did you not do those things? And I said, because honestly, if we could know now what we knew then, we probably wouldn't have got married. Because we didn't get married for any of the right reasons. Any of the reasons you should, not why we did it. This is her and I talking on the way home last night. We didn't do any of those things. None of them. Like, we were everything you're not supposed to be. Go ahead and play it in your mind. Everything. We were just we were not godly. We weren't spiritual. We didn't think about the future. We didn't think about our destiny. We didn't think about chemistry. We didn't think about mutual interest and likes. We didn't think about any of that stuff. And we begin to talk about, but what we do have is we do have purpose. And purpose at this point is greater than everything else. The purpose is God's given us 2 beautiful little girls that we have a responsibility to raise. The purpose of the church that we've been called to pastor, and and purpose to me trumps everything else. It trumps everything else. The calling that's on your life and the calling that's on every single life in this room. You can go back and say, oh, but we don't feel this and we don't have that. And what about this? And that couple has such and such. And they have this going on. And his wife is like this. And her husband's like that. And you could go through all that stuff. Or you can just simply say, listen, man, this is us, and our purpose trumps everything else. And the fact that God has called us together to make a difference in this world, and the only way we can continue to make that difference is to say, you know what? There is an unbreakable seal. It's an unbreakable seal. On my side, it's unbreakable. On her side, it's unbreakable. And as a result of that, I'm not going to defect just because it starts to be hard, just because I start to feel some bullets, flying by me, just because all of a sudden I feel like, my life's at risk or whatever it is. I'm not going to defect because I'm afraid of the future.